Welcome back to the High Ticket AI Systems Podcast. Everyone, please welcome the one and only Mr. Stuart Bell. Stuart, how you doing today, my friend?
John, good to see you, buddy. How you doing?
Yes, sir. Fantastic. Thanks for joining us. Now, I always ask this first question here, but essentially at a high level, what do you sell and who do you sell to?
That's what I like. Straight to the business end. So I own a couple of book companies. 90 Minute Books has been around for the longest. People might recognize that name. We've been around for 15 years or so. Offerings in brutally honest guides and score funnels. But basically, we're working with high trust businesses where your customer, your consumer needs to buy you as much as they do the product or service. So what we do is help take your ideas, the knowledge that you've already got already, and document it, package it together into a tool, an asset that kind of does that communication, does that selling, does that relationship building for you when you're out of the room, which, as I'm sure we'll get into, is even more relevant these days with AI doing a lot of that relationship building work on behalf of customers. Yeah, we high trust business owners really need to think about those opportunities to make sure that not only are they present, but they're present in the room with the prospects and with the robots. So interesting times.
No, absolutely, it definitely is. Well, I think with books, like you said earlier, it adds so much authority to the marketplace. Like saying that you're an author is just like a label of authority. And to back that up further, someone that reads a full 90-minute book or a full book in general, like they are pretty bought in, hopefully, to your philosophy, your thought process, your mental mode, your mental way of thinking. And I know I didn't know this at the time, but after just being in the industry, when Alex Hermosi, the book behind me, when he first launched his book, it's essentially like a lead magnet. And I'm like, at the
Yeah.
time, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, he's just giving away his value for free. But if you really think about the play that he's doing, it's like, no, dude, like I want you to read all my material, get rich as hell so I can invest into your company. Like that's essentially the play behind it, which is
Yeah.
genius, one might
It's
say.
so interesting, isn't it? I mean, our whole perspective has been since we started, we're a marketing company primarily. Books just happen to be that disproportionately effective way. It must be something to do with kind of like the dead trees and the dead clouds that the glue's made from. It must do something to people's brains. It's 1,000 words on a printed page in a book is way more effective than 1,000 words on a website or in social media. So the fact that the book isn't the product, it's the conversation that's the product. That's the exact angle that Alex and everyone else takes, unless, of course, the book is a product and there's a whole separate traditional publishing world where the book is a product and everything that's associated to that. But I think for most of us as business owners, certainly as I say, high trust business owners, where we need to build that relationship with people, people need to buy us as much as they do the product or service, then books still have a disproportionately outsized benefit compared with the exact same effort placed somewhere else. The trick, though, and again, having done 1,300 or so books with 90 Minute Books, the trick that, the mechanism that makes them more received by clients also can, um, how profane is this a polite podcast? It can screw us as business owners because when we say book, we think traditional book because that's what everyone does because everyone thinks that books are these traditional things. So it holds everyone up. I was just on a call before we jumped on to record today with a guy who's been in business for 20 years. He knows his stuff. If I invited him to stage in front of 100 people, I'm sure he could talk extemporaneously for hours about the subject. If we dialed it in and kind of structured a couple of slides beforehand, we could have a really meaningful presentation tailored exactly to that audience. The conversation was about book, and all of a sudden it's almost like a college assignment. Like if you saw my academic record, you'd kind of see why my eyes glaze over when you talk about it as well. But it's this academic exercise that, oh, this is going to get scored by other people. It has to be right first time. I've got one submission opportunity and then that's it. But that's not what we're talking about. That's traditional publishing, which is expensive and time consuming and has its whole kind of rigmarole around it. What we're talking about is almost like a campaign tool to talk to a group of people, like those 100 people in the meeting room. We just want to give them the most useful message that compels them to come and grab us when we step off stage and say, hey, I need to know more. Book in this respect as a conversation tool is the exact same thing. So it's easy for us to get wrapped up around this thing called book that has to be all of these things that we think in terms of traditional world. But actually, the most effective thing that we can do as business owners is have the asset that starts the conversation, that builds that rapport. Then when we do eventually get on the phone with someone, get on the phone with someone, I'm dating myself now, get on Zoom with someone, there is that sense of relationship that they've predisposed and pre-selected themselves to want to work with us because the 10,000 words that they've read are aligning perfectly with what they're already thinking, and the conversation is just accelerated from there.
I have so many questions. When you say books have a disproportionate effectiveness on the rest of the marketing channels, like how much? Like how disproportionate?
So we have like the best example. It's funny. So there's a guy called Paul Ross. He's written a couple of books with us. All of them super small as well. Like if you saw them, you barely think that they were books. I mean, it's the minimum effective dose of a book. So he's a podiatrist. I think that's the right term, foot doctor.
Sure.
Again, don't judge me on. If I ever misspeak, the benefit is I just blame it on an accent difference, and I just pretend that I'm saying the UK words, not the US words, despite the fact that I've lived here for almost 10 years. But anyway, Paul's a podiatrist. He wrote, I think the second or third book he wrote was called "My Damn Toe Hurts." So whatever condition it is that makes your toe hurt, that's what the audience he was addressing. So again, going back to what we said before, if Paul was thinking that, okay, if I'm a podiatrist, what the hell do I know about writing books? If I've got to write a traditional book, I'm not going to do it. The recipient on the other end, I mean, there's probably not many podiatry patients who want to read War and Peace on all of this academic podiatry stuff. So anyway, My Damn Toe Hurts talk simply about the conditions, the symptoms you might feel, some of the things that you might have tried. And ultimately, if all of that hasn't worked, you probably need to come in because we need a more meaningful intervention. So he had a patient come in, didn't know the patient, just it was on the calendar, turned up, sat in the chair. About 10 minutes into the appointment, I don't know exactly how it went, but in my mind, Paul's down there, kind of knelt down in front of this person and he's kind of messing with his toes. And this person, as they're talking, all of a sudden said, "Oh my God, I've just realized you're the Paul that wrote the book. That's why I'm here. I've had this problem for like 20 years. The book was exact. I mean, it was like you read my mind. This is exactly what I've tried. All the things you said tried and may not work. I've tried and they may not work. I've spent time on orthotics and different shoes and a lump of meat and burying it in the garden or whatever the old wives' tale is." So that telegraphing of the authority, not only did this tiny little book get this person in the door because they hadn't even thought that this was an option, they were just living with it basically. So it telegraphed the authority. And then in the moment, initial consultation that Paul was having, it immediately changed from, well, I'm here, but I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've read this book, I think I know it, but you're the person. It's literally you are the person who wrote the book. You are the reason that I'm here. Rapport balance, like the check and balance account,
Yeah.
is, I mean, it just shoots through the roof in a way that doesn't work in other media. So there's absolutely a reason for having social media campaigns and a reason for having podcasts and all of these other things. But book, for whatever reason, still telegraphs more authority. And I think it's because I think it's because to everyone else, they look at it as an outsider and think, oh my God, a book is like a 12-month project and you've got to lock yourself away and it costs $100,000. And yes, there are people who would happily take that money off you and charge you that much. For us, wanting to do a campaign tool, we can leverage that misperception that it's a kind of like a authority arbitrage. So that outside, everyone assumes that the telegraphed authority is up here, but on the inside, we know that actually it's down here in terms of getting it done, but it just closes that gap to accelerate the conversation.
It's the power of association. What you're saying is beautiful right here. If I were to hang out with nothing but billionaires for like a fucking month, everyone that saw me hang out with this crew would just associate me with being a billionaire because everybody
Yeah,
else is, right? So if I have a book and because everyone has a not traditional way of thinking, but a way of thinking about books, and like you just framed it, it takes hours, cost a lot of money, lock myself in the dungeon. And if I have a book, everyone else associates that effort, authority, time, what you just said with me. But
yeah,
if for the insider, if like you know the secret sauce, it's like, well, that's not the actual case, but I'll take all the authority you give me. Thank you. And I love
yeah.
that. Absolutely love that. Follow-up question. Sorry. When you say high trust businesses, can you give us like one or two examples or a few if you want?
Yeah, yeah. For the longest time, like I say, I mean, 9 Minute Books has been around for 15 years. Doing marketing. My background is project, kind of like project management on the IT side, so corporate type work. But moving across into marketing and then into the book creation company, I hadn't come across a useful category of people who we work with through our own marketing, like picking that avatar and going forward. It was always, well, I joke now because we can say that of those 1,300 books, we've literally done the A to Z of companies because we've got lots of accountants. And thank God we've got a Zimbabwean outsourcer. So thank you, JW Oliver. I can now say we've got the A to Z of all of them. So what was the common term? And the common term is less about the industry, it's less about the product or the service, it's less about the transaction or the mechanism. Really, the commonality is this idea of a high trust business. And it's where your prospects, the people who you work with, need to buy you as much as they do the service. So think about airline pilots. Airline pilots aren't book clients, but they're in a high trust environment. So when you go into the plane, most people don't turn left and ask to see the pilot's license and check the logs that they did all of the thing right. They assume that all of that's done. They assume that the service is going to be delivered. They don't question whether the plane's going to take off. They might question whether it'll take off on time, but they don't question whether it's going to take off. Hopefully, they don't question whether it's going to land again. What they're picking up on is all of the other high trust elements around this world. So I use pilots as an example because they're not book clients. So it's a good opportunity to talk about the mechanism of high trust outside of books. So in the airline, the flight type world, it's the politeness of the crew as you walk on board, the cleanliness of the aircraft, and the fact that there aren't oil patches dripping around. For some people, it'll be how quickly, whether you get a drink served before they take off. Like all of these other elements are the telegraphing of the wider experience, and that the customers have to buy that experience rather than technically what's delivered. The assumption is that technically it's delivered. So for high trust business owners where a book is the answer, so position all of the financial services industries, home services like HVAC consultants or building remodelers
Really?
or vets, like anything where the person assumes that you can do the job. Unless you've got like a review site where it's all like 1-star reviews, okay, then you got another problem. But assuming that everyone's got 4-star reviews plus, everyone assumes that you can do the job. So the difference is that relationship. They have to buy you. They want to work with you. They don't want to give you all of their retirement savings if they don't like you. They don't want you to mess around with their toe if they don't like you. They don't want to give you money to write a book unless they've got some rapport built with you. So that's the definition of the high trust business, which is industry agnostic, solution agnostic. It's all about relationships.
Thank you for the context there. And when you are crafting this 90-minute book, can you give us like the framework that you like to follow, like the actual content inside this book?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the most important thing is, so we've got, this is one of the books that I use for the 90-minute book business, the book blueprint scorecard. So there's 8 elements there to a conversation starting book as opposed to a traditional book. So the most important one, I'll go through a couple in order, but the most important one is choosing the single target audience, because a traditional book, you're trying to sell as many copies as possible. So within the genre, you want to go wide. If instead we think of it as a campaign book, kind of like a old Google ad in the old days, choosing the demographics or the audience on the back end, then leads into the title of the book, and the title of the ad. So the equivalent is the title of the book, a subtitle that amplifies it. So that's the body copy of the old ad. So now we've got the audience that have a title, the most obvious thing that resonates with them and gets them to stop their scroll. We've got the body of the ad, the subtitle of the book that amplifies it and gets them to say, yes, I am there. Then we've got a meaningful, easy, minimum viable commitment call to action, the smallest next step that they can take. So out of the book, what's the next step? Because honestly, we're not converting anyone in the book. The book isn't doing the conversion job. The book is just to get to that first point of the conversation. So what's the minimum step that they can do next? Because that leads to some beneficial constraints. Because if we just started writing, man, we'd be in a black hole of 6 months later and still trying to dig ourselves out. So we want these constraints of, we know who we're talking to, we know what's going to stop them in the scroll, we know where we want to lead them to the next step. So therefore, the content of the book, it becomes self-evident. We just need to stepstone them, give them enough compelling evidence to build on the message that we're giving enough that they take that next step. We don't need to completely sell them. We don't need to give them everything. We don't need to overwhelm them with details which might be useful in a year but are irrelevant today. We're not trying to justify a $20 list price on the book, and we don't need to keep writing, otherwise people feel like bait and switched into just a call to action. What we want to do is deliver the narrowest possible book that answers the question for the target audience that we've chosen in a way that's robust and deep so people feel good about the content, and then give them an obvious next step that's easy to take. And the book kind of comes together from that. So the words on the page are the last thing. The structure around its job of work, what it's doing, that's the most important piece. And because we know our stuff, I mean, most of us have been in business for enough years that, again, going back to the stage metaphor, if you just said, "My God, Jordan, I need you to come into the meeting quick. We need to deliver a presentation for an hour," and the person just flaked out, "I need you to step in." You could step in and wing it for an hour because you know it enough. That's the content of the book. The structure is the most important thing. The content for us, because we know it, kind of comes easy enough.
Right. And with this marketing campaign for the 90-minute book, are we giving it away for free or are we charging a small dollar amount for it?
There's two approaches. So for the most part, for cold traffic, so I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we were working with someone recently who they are, how would you describe what they do? I'm going to butcher this completely, but basically they help mainly female audience deal with brain fog type things, some of which comes from stress, some of it comes from menopause, but really it's that whole kind of dealing with overwhelm. So, as a psychologist, might not technically be the right word, but therapist dealing in that space, there's a lot of technical angles and running an ad to say, "Hey, if you're dealing with stress, come and work with me, book a free appointment." Like that conversion type material, or realtors, you see it billboards all around, sell your house with me. All of that kind of very close to the conversion ad is expensive. So it's not unusual to have $5, $10 ads. I mean, going into like 50 and $100 ads in some industries. Jessica, who was the therapist person, we wrote the brain fog solution. And I use this example because it's so ridiculously at the other end of the spectrum. Going from, I forget what the exact ad spend was, but it was somewhere around $5 for more traditional ads. Still good ads in that kind of transactional type way. Ads that we were running for the book went from $5 something down to 67 cents. It's like 67 cents for an opted in ad. Now, I don't know what the numbers were. I can't remember the numbers for like conversion rates overall. We probably didn't have quite robust to have absolute conversion. But to build that audience as an audience building tool at such a lower CPM on ad spend, because you're getting people further up the funnel, you're not asking them if they're ready to buy now. You're just asking them if they've got a problem and identifying for that longer relationship. We've gone from the whole population of the world to the population who are broadly interested. And now we can nurture that relationship, starting by adding value in a way that's much more cost effective and looking for much more longer conversion cycle. I don't know how it is for you, but for us particularly, I mean, we talk to people all the time who got on our list like 8, 9 years ago now. I should stop doing it because it makes me feel old. I was talking to someone probably 2 weeks ago now who I remember speaking to when they first reached out however long ago. We jumped on the call and said, "Hey, how you doing? It's probably been a while." I mean, was it like last year or the year before? And as I'm talking here, I kind of quickly look, I just scroll back in the email to see when it was. And it was 4 years ago. It was kind of in COVID, and that time is just gone. So again, high trust business, a lot of the time, because it's not like emergency plumbers. If you've got water pouring out of the wall, you need to do something about it now. For most high trust businesses, it doesn't have to be today. Therefore, it's probably tomorrow. So if we can, at a cost effective way, know the world, get more of that total addressable market exposure, and then stay in touch with people so that that rapport is building, so that when today is the day for them, we're already there. Yeah, that's a much more cost-effective way of doing it.
Absolutely. I know Alex and a couple other guys have this idea as well, but essentially it's like a low ticket to high ticket funnel ascension pathway. we could just very similar concept, but what you're describing is very important for the audience to understand. Like the point of the funnel is to get people in your ecosystem for as cheap and semi qualified as possible through the funnel process of like, kicking people out that aren't a good fit or now simply isn't the right time. I just heard about you. If they're in the ecosystem, we could do something about that, right? We can nurture them, send them material, just point one, get them in the ecosystem. But going back to the point where you described earlier, having a super bottom of funnel call to action like, hey, sell your house with me, that's going to cost a significant amount of dollars. And not everyone is ready for that. But more people are probably open to the idea of like the 6 steps to prepare for when it comes to selling my house. Like a lot more people would grab that 90-minute book as an example of the name, opposed to calling Jeff over here that's on the freaking billboard, right? And now that they're
Yeah.
in the ecosystem, there's so many things that we could do with that contact information. And like you said, I mean, proof is in the freaking pudding. You spoke with someone 4 years ago, and now you're speaking with them again, and like that's amazing.
Yeah, because today's the day that they're ready. As there's a book that I read years ago by a guy called Michael, I think it's Michael Gleason, an Australian academic guy, and I think the book is called Wombat Selling. So in his book, he talks about check moves, and I think he trained sales teams a lot, like traditional sales teams. And he was saying part of the problem is that sales teams have such high turnover and churn because a lot of the metrics are on closes, like how many people have you got to sign on the line that's dotted. But that is actually out of your control. As a salesperson, you can't control, unless you like lock the door behind them and do all those dodgy tactics, you can't control whether they convert. The only thing you can control is the number of conversion opportunities that exist. So that is in your control. And it's an upstream function of how many people ultimately convert and choose that today is the day for them. That goes back to your point on, and I skipped over the question of whether to charge for the book or not, or whether to give away chapters, or some people will have a link on their website to the book, but it's a link to Amazon. Who the hell cares? Like you don't know that lead. You're not going to see it. So the whole charging thing, only reason giving away the digital version and the whole digital version is far more effective than giving away a chapter. Because if you go to a website, you're not there to buy the book or to get the book. The book isn't the product. You want the solution that they're offering. If you go to a financial advisor's site because you need a money manager and they, hey, download a chapter of the book and then go to Amazon to buy the book. I've got $1 million portfolio here. Why are you nickel and diming me and sending me to a $16 book? Like
Right.
that lead. So the one time that it may be like the free plus shipping or what Alex does and a lot of others do, the physical cost of books, if you're physically sending them to someone, that changes the dynamic a little bit. It's expensive to send books around. So if you can recover some of the cost and bring down your acquisition cost because you're asking to get paid for sending them out, there is an argument to be made there. And the relationship is different. Like physically sending someone a book and asking them to pay for shipping, free plus shipping is a common thing. Like people understand that they are getting something off physically receiving something.
Tangible,
So
exactly.
tangible, yeah. My preferred approach is not getting involved in that at all because it's so complicated and there's so many levers to pull. The people that do it well, but holy cow, there's a lot to think about in that world. My preferred approach is give away the digital versions, nurturing the email sequence afterwards, get people out with the book and onto the call as quick as possible. In that follow-up sequence, give people additional assets, additional tools where they can keep the conversation going. They can keep their journey going until they're ready to actually get on the phone, and then keep the physical ones for scenarios where you can address visible prospects as opposed to invisible prospects. So the invisible prospects is the podiatrist example. Paul couldn't buy a list of everyone with a bit of toe pain in a 20-mile radius. All he could do was advertise on social media. If he's got toe problem, then here's a great book. They're invisible prospects. Until they raise their hand, you don't know who they are. We did another book recently with an exit planning attorney, an exit plan. They're not attorneys, they're exit planning people. They work with a specific, they were in Louisiana, they work with a specific type of business. They could buy or knew the 200 companies that even if they got 10% of those over the next 10 years, their business would explode. So the physical use case there is as a fantastic door opener to get 10 copies of the book, to mail them with a note. Hey, Dave, I've been wanting to catch up with you a little while. We actually just wrote this book about exit planning, and chapter 3 here is perfectly suited to your business because we just did another exit valuation with a company that was very similar to yours. So I think this is going to be really useful for you, Bob. Send that and then follow up the next week. Hey, Bob, Mike, I sent you send you a copy of the book. I just wanted to follow up. That as a door opener, as opposed to just cold calling or trying to get past the gatekeepers, physically using the books in that way, far more efficient way than doing like the free plus shipping and just trying to manipulate the numbers on ad spend.
Yeah, I'm such a simple guy. Like, I will not that I will never try that, but it just seems really complex, and like I said, I'm a simple guy. Like, just have the PDF.
Yeah. And
So
expensive if it goes wrong.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm an online business owner. Let's just hypothetical world. Have a 90-minute book. What is the strategy behind getting that in the hands of people? Do you recommend Facebook meta ads where I go through that lead funnel process? Cool. So I run meta ads, have this free book. Let's give it away for free in this example. Can you walk me through that nurture sequence? Like how the funnel
Yeah.
might be composed, like the email sequence, how high is the frequency, what's in the email copy without I guess giving away the secret sauce, but like high level stuff, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. And I'm more than happy to give away all of the secret sauce. And actually, just seeing that point, that goes with the books. Like some people will say, I don't want to give everything away because then why would people come and see me? It's literally because they can't do it themselves. Like you want the people to come and see you who don't want to do it themselves. You don't want a calendar full of half DIY people because it'll drive you crazy. The other thing is, I'm 50, how old am I? 51 now. I was around for the dawn of the internet, like the main web revolution. I was just starting work at that period of time. So going from no websites to websites. But the idea that I don't want to give away all the secret sauce, that ship sailed 20 years ago. And 2 years ago, with the advent of AI, believe me, that ship has sailed and sunk and now the fishies are swimming around it. There is no secret sauce anymore. What you want to concentrate on is giving as much to the person as possible that they feel compelled that, hey, this person gets it. They're a safe pair of hands. I resonate with what they're saying. I need them to do it because for most of us, again, in high trust businesses, it's too complicated for people to do. They're not going to renovate their own house. They're not going to manage their own portfolio. They're not going to write their own book. They could do, and there's a cohort of people that do all of that, but they're not our clients. So forget about that piece. The nurture sequence and the follow up is this kind of, I've got this term, it's in that, what is one of the elements of that blueprint book, the minimum viable commitment. It's this idea of the smallest step to get people to the next stage. So depending on where you are and what your business is and what the barrier to entry is for them to actually get started, it's going to vary from a tiny commitment to a much bigger commitment. So whatever we can do to make that small pieces that allow people to raise their hand. So the first words, so running meta ads, most of the time we're doing lead ads. So we're not bouncing them off to a landing page. We're just doing the lead ads straight away. We'll use Zapier to connect it to the CRM. So the lead will come in and then bounce to the CRM. The CRM will deliver them the email. The email will have the copy of the book. We'll put a quick question. Here's a copy of the book blueprint scorecard. Chapter 7 is actually really interesting because a lot of people don't think about the idea of beneficial constraints, but really less is more as far as this project goes. Have you thought about a title yet? That question at the end, what we're trying to do in all of this, these aren't checkout purchases. Very few of our clients just go to the website and buy a book. Most of them need to talk to us first. So everything that we're trying to do is trying to get to that conversation. So that first delivery is that. Now, I'm not going into the weeds too much, but there's always nuance and variation. So with a meta lead ad, you've got the concept of a thank you page. So what do we do on the thank you page? Do we want to send people straight to the download of the book, to the PDF, because people are in the moment, they're doing it there and then? We maybe don't want to send them straight to the book because with everything that's going on with email these days, we really want them to open that email because of the signals that gives to their email provider that the next 20 emails that we send them are more likely to not go to spam or the promotions folder if they've actually engaged in it. So really, although it slows up the process a little bit, we really want them to go to click on the email when it comes in. Okay, but that's a constraint with the user journey, because if they're enthusiastic, we want to keep that momentum going, not have them bounce off to another mechanism and try and find the email. Okay, so how can we close that gap? So on the thank you page of the email, it would be great to send them to a landing page, which is a video saying, hey, great to see you here. So this is a copy of the book that I'm just sending you. One of the most interesting chapters is chapter 7 because of this idea of beneficial constraints. So go check the email now. It's got the book. In the meantime, if you want to jump forward a little bit, we also have a scorecard associated with this that you can take online. I'll leave a link below. I'll also put it in the email. If you've got any questions, just give me a shout. My email address, I'll put it down below on the page here. It'll obviously also be in the email. I'm really excited to see what your book's about. That way, we've built the relationship a little bit in the thank you page in the moment, but we haven't distracted from this other mechanism, which really, unfortunately, we need now. We need them to open that email. The follow-up sequence over the next period of time, we've probably got 5 days or so while they're still in the moment for the hottest people, which we've got no control of. We're probably not going to push many people over the fence. It's either today or it's not today. But the hottest ones, we want to give them the opportunity to get started. So the next 5 days of the initial autoresponder, we want to give them more credibility, more proof, more evidence that they can see it. So the next message might be, Adrian, following up on the book, one of the most surprising things, I actually just got off the phone with someone, is this idea of a book as a campaign tool and not as a be-all and end-all, write the one thing to serve all people. So one of the best thought technologies that you can get is this concept of one book, one audience, one campaign. Your job now is just to decide who it is that you want to work with, who are your best clients, what are the questions that would motivate them to raise their hand and jump on a call? What are their pain points that you can fix for them? And that's what should be in the book. There might be another book, there might be a whole load of stuff out of the book, but that one small thing. So that autoresponder sequence is really just compelling them with kind of like the testimonial type approach, case study type approach. You don't want to call it testimonial case study because that's our language, that's internal language. The clients don't care about that. They don't want to be presented with a case study. Who the hell cares about that? Well, what they do want to be presented with is, hey, I just wanted to give you an example because we were working with a guy called Paul recently who didn't think he had a book because he was a podiatrist, knew what the problems were, but couldn't present that in a way. So we worked with him to work out what the biggest pain points were for that audience, structure it in a way, and here was the result. So case study, testimonial, evidence that people can see themselves in that solution. So the 5 days or so of this initial response is to get the hottest people to raise their hand. After that point, everyone is tomorrow, and we've got no way of knowing what tomorrow is. So what we then want is the ongoing evergreen campaign of just every week sending out more friendly, compelling evidence, talking about books, giving them helpful insights so that when today's the day for them, hopefully they've just received an email recently from us that kind of backs up their thought that we're the people that they want to speak to.
A side question, what are your thoughts on email in the list? How frequently, like the long-term nurture campaign? I'm not gonna lie, I do it daily. So if you end up on the list, bro, I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. But I do it daily. I try to provide value Monday through Thursday of like, here's what I'm thinking, here's how to win, blah, 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 free value. And then Friday, because people get paid on Fridays, well, not everyone, but typically
Yeah,
I send my offer.
yeah,
What are your
yeah.
thoughts on that? Or I guess different question, how often do you email the long-term list?
Yeah, man, it's so interesting. Email. I mean, you've got other videos talking about email, but it's a black hole of nonsense these days. My business partner in 90 Minute Books is Dean Jackson. So Dean's got this perfect idea called a super signature, which is in an email. And I've heard lots of people take it and think that it comes from different people, but the super signature is Dean's idea originally. It's a PS message in the messages that goes out and say, PS is, whenever you're ready, here's 3 ways I can help you, and give people 3 next steps that are closer to that transaction. So it's not as immediate as here's a sales offer and just here's the buyer, but in every useful, value-driven email that goes out, there's a next step that people can take. So the body of the email is all giving, is all value-driven content, but there is that PS that people can take that next, super signature, that people can take that next step. The frequency, my old answer would have been weekly and send it to everyone. All CRM systems have got opt-outs at the bottom. We're all good people. We're not trying to dump people at buying lists and dump people on there. We're doing email in the right way. There's an opt out on the bottom. People can click that opt out, send it weekly. Some industries can deal with daily, like the Dan Kennedy approach is keep going until they unsubscribe and then they weren't a client anyway. Plus, because of the longer nature of it, daily is probably too much for us. We're
Yeah.
not, I mean, basically, what you're trying to do with email is intersect at the moment that they thought, oh, do you know what? I've had this book project on for 2 years. I need to do something about it now. And then bing, an email pops up with a link to get started. Like that would be the magic solution. If the last email I sent them was 6 months ago, yeah, they got to do a lot of hunting around. 3 for us is a good enough cadence. We don't need to go more than that. Sometimes we'll go bi-weekly or twice a week because we'll send out like a email which is just the email, like information in the email, and then we also do a lot of podcast stuff, so we'll send out the podcast release email which has got the PS and the super signature in it. So technically I guess we're probably doing twice a week. What's interesting now though, and it's not my ballpark so I won't go too much into it, but just high level, again, I had a conversation 2 weeks ago of someone on the list from 4 years ago. Google would say if they haven't opened an email in 4 years, I'm not going to deliver it to them anymore. And that non-open is going to damage your open rate on the other ones. So there's a whole world around now of non-engaged people. But for example, I'm on Frank Kern's list. I mean, last time I opened an email from Frank Kern was probably number of years ago, but I don't want to unsubscribe. I'm happy to still get them because when I magically get all of this abundance of time that will suddenly land on my lap at some point, I want to go back and catch up on all of this stuff that I actually want. I just can't get it in my head. So I don't want to be unsubscribed, but Google has probably unsubscribed me. I bet if I went to look, I've either been unsubscribed or definitely in promotions. So there is this now tension between response rate and people not opening and deliverability and actually getting through. So another quick example, though, just to kind of emphasize what nonsense that point is. I love this example.
Yeah.
So again, Dean's my business partner in the books world. I do a lot of work with Dean, so I get exposure to some of the real estate stuff that Dean does. So we got a friend called Kenny McCarthy as a realtor up in the Boston, Cape Ann type area. So he played a voicemail when we saw him a couple of years ago. He was in Florida. Played a voicemail, and this voicemail was, "Hey Kenny, it's Jordan here. Listen, I've been trying to get in touch with you because unfortunately my sister died a couple of weeks ago. So the family's here. We now need to sell her house. We're probably going to sell my house as well, and then we're going to buy something else. So anyway, I hope this is your number. I used to be on your list. I don't know what happened. I couldn't find an email recently. Anyway, I phoned another realtor in the area and got your number. So I hope this is right. And anyway, give me a call." That turned into 2 sales and a purchase. I forget the exact numbers, but like the total price was up in the like $5 million area, $5 million for the 3 properties.
For sure.
So that person was on the list, had been on the list for years. And it wasn't the email, because this was a couple of years ago, so it wasn't the email was purging it. Penny, he was a little bit kind of shiny object. He was, I'm going to purge this list. Anyone who hasn't opened in my email system, I'm just going to stop sending them. On the recipient side, this person was building a relationship with Kenny. It's just they didn't have a house to sell. But 3 years later, they had a house to sell. Now they're looking for Kenny. Kenny had stopped sending emails. So that one person, that one person went to the effort of phoning another realtor in town, which I can only imagine how that conversation went. "Hello, can I help you? Yeah, I've got 2 houses to sell. I'm probably going to buy another one. I mean, they're probably like $3 million houses. That's fantastic. What can I do to help you? Do you have Kenny's number?" Like, I mean, as the realtor who gets that call. And then he jumped through and went all to those efforts. So, long-winded way of saying that there is a tension now between the frequency of sending emails, whether those emails are delivered, the impact of the open rate and how much that is damaging versus not damaging. But all of those technical machinations aside, we need to know as high trust business owners, these relationships are long term, they're multi year. The fact that we haven't heard from someone doesn't mean that they're dead. Another example, and I'll shut up in a second because otherwise I got 13 years worth of examples. My
Right.
brother's a yacht broker in Florida. About 7 years ago, he took over the office at a brokerage that he was working from. The guy, I can't remember whether he died or retired. I'm going to say retired because it sounds nicer. But anyway, Phil takes over this office, and literally in the drawer in the filing cabinet, there's a hanging folder called Dead Leads, like literally labeled Dead Leads. So we look at it and think, okay, this is time for a 9-word email. "Hey, Johnny, he's still looking for a yacht. Hey, Stuart, he's still looking for a yacht. Hey, Bobby, he's still looking for a yacht." That turned into a contract which actually, because of other reasons, didn't come to fruition. But that was originally, I think it was a $7 million yacht that was going through the build process. The only reason it didn't come to fruition is because the grandfather died, left the money to the client that Phil was on this dead lead list. They started building it, but then the whole estate went into, there was like arguments within the family around this estate. So that was the only reason that the boat didn't complete. But there was a $2 million yacht sale in the meantime because the guy wanted a boat while his boat was being built, literally labeled dead leads. All of that to say, and we haven't touched on the AI piece, we're going to run out of time to talk about it, I'm sure. As high trust business owners, our relationships with people are virtually invisible and very long running. They're building rapport with us, even though we don't know it. And if we decide that those leads are dead, or stop talking to them, or stop emailing them, or stop providing value, they'll silently disappear. And that silently disappearing is now just being exacerbated and being even made even worse with AI and all of the reasons why AI now intermediates a lot of that rapport building relationship, which a book also helps because it anchors your perspective in a world that the robots can see. But high trust business is different from everything else. It's all about the conversation. The book isn't the product, the conversation is the product.
I Stuart, you're the fucking man for that, dude. Absolutely. Great, great gems. I do have one question. I know we're running out of time here. Do you have a tracking system for the online books that are delivered to on your own or for your own company and on behalf of your clients? Do you have metrics on like the open rate of the book or even like the completion, like how long they spent on the book? Because my question is like, are they consuming the book or is the book like the lead magnet, like the
Yeah.
exchange for contact information? And I'm just curious to know.
Yeah, so it's super interesting. We've got, so on 90-minute books, pretty much we want to give the book to you and then it's in your system. The majority of people have got their own CRMs, they've got teams when they're doing it themselves, or they've got little teams. So we have very little visibility, annoyingly, into the downstream. So it's very anecdotal on that side. The brutal guide side of things, which is the product, which is for people who want a book funnel, but they don't want to write a book. This is much more done for you. It's specifically a product as opposed to a service. So we've got more tracking on this. And the tracking that we've got is the touch points where people raise their hand, opening the email, clicking on the links, clicking on the follow-ups. We don't have tracking on the consumption of the book itself. But what we do know is that Kobo, so the I forget who made them. Was it Microsoft? The Kobo readers, like the Kindle alternative,
Yeah.
kind of like the Android version of Kindle. So the Kobo books, they did an analysis of book consumption for traditional books, like books that are normally sold in the Kobo store, and it was something like only 7% of books got 20 more than 25% into the readership of the book. And this is books, this is traditional books where the entire job of the book is to be consumed. The book is the product. So even there, I mean, you got books behind you there. I've got a shelf full of books here, and kind of behind this wall here, there's more books. Where we're talking about books as campaign tools, what the end consumer wants is the solution to the problem.
Correct.
They don't want the exercise of having to read the book. They might tolerate having to get the book in order to get the answer, but what they really want, if they get a book called My Damn Toe Hurts, or How to Sell Your House for Top Dollar, or the book Blueprint Scorecard, I want the book. I want my toe to stop hurting. I want top dollar for my house. Don't make me read the damn book to get to the answer.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's some amount of authority and credibility, and they need to get past that threshold enough so that they will jump on a call. So that's why we want the content of the book to be enough to move them forward. But it's why we structured it in the way that I mentioned before: audience, title, subtitle, call to action, table of contents, and the content is actually way down here. So what do most people do? 7% of people read books where the whole purpose of the book is to read it. We're interrupting their day to present them something that makes them think, yeah, I need that. But what I need is the answer to the problem. Hopefully, this book is the mechanism to the answer. I'm going to look at the title and look at the subheading. I'm going to flip to the back. Oh, there's a call to action that all of that's consistent. It makes sense. I'm going to look at the table of contents and it's kind of building on, here's the problem, here's the steps, here's the solution, here's the next step. It's kind of building that step towards that call to action. So the content of the book needs to be good enough that if someone is an outlier and does read some proportion of it or skims through and read the chapter that they're particularly interested in, it does genuinely give them value We're not trying to bait and switch them into anything. We want to deliver the value, just like we would if they were in a meeting. The book, the job of work of the book isn't to be read. The job of work is to give them enough confidence that the decision that they made, that they want the solution to the problem, that they feel that this book is going to get them there, that they feel like calling you is the right decision. We want to just stack on all of the evidence building elements that they're making the right decision and they're the best, most intelligent person in the world by giving you a call.
Ask that question because I wanted people who were possibly on the fence about the idea to understand what you just said. And you articulated it so well, my friend, so freaking well. It's the gateway. Like, you
Yeah.
obviously wanna provide value, but the goal isn't for them to read the whole book. The goal is for them to take action on the book, so they're now in your ecosystem. So eventually, they'll become a paying client. Thank you for saying that, my
Yeah.
friend.
And I think it's that, I mean, particularly in all the businesses that we're in, underlying psychology, for the most part, is they know they've got a problem, whatever the problem is that we fix. They know they've got a problem. They're making a choice that this is the right decision. They want, it's like the pilot example when we start off talking. They've made the choice to fly with this airline to go to this destination. Every element of it needs to reinforce that that's the right decision. If they turned up at the ticketing desk and the person said, "Sorry, what's your name?" I don't know. I mean, maybe just here's a ticket. You'll be fine. Oh, okay. Well, if they've done that to me, what other dodgy person have they done it to? If you give them your bag and they just hoik it over their shoulder, you're going to look and think, "Am I ever going to see this bag again?" Credibility. If you walk down the plane and like the skyway thing is all janky and half falling over, and you step into the aircraft and there's oil leaking down, and if you walk on and the air crew are kind of smoking a cigarette and drinking and just go that way. If you look in and the pilot's there all disheveled, looking like he's hungover, like all of these credibility things are really going to make you question whether you get on that flight, and certainly not whether you ever fly with them again. That same decision that your clients are making, I was kind of overemphasizing the context, but it's the same thing. They've made this decision to put some amount of trust with you. They've pretty much made the decision to continue to the transaction. All they're looking for is that each step in the path is a yes, 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 not a no, no, no. Because I heard this, and again, I could go on all day, but I heard an example of a funnel. It's an inversion of a funnel by a guy called Flint McLaughlin. Runs this old, I'm so old school, been around for a while, a company called Mech Labs, which is kind of like a marketing research institute. So he described the funnel inverted. So rather than loading up the top and people naturally fall down to the bottom, actually for most of our businesses, it's inverted. People come in the bottom and have to ascend to the top, and inertia is against them. It's not put them in enough marbles in the top and inertia carries them down. It's that they've got to climb to the top. So in the high trust business example, I kind of reframe that slightly to be the high trust descent. So on the client side, they have to ascend through contact. They have to know you exist. Contact, connection. They need to know why it's relevant that you exist. Credibility. They have to believe that you're there. Conversation, and then confirmation. So those 5 C's are steps up every time. And at any one of those steps, they can fall off the edge. Now's not the time. I thought this was the right message, but I don't like it. I eventually heard that person talk and they got some dodgy British accent. That's not for me. I can't understand what they're saying. So all of this ascent, inertia is them falling down of the bottom, not making it to the ascent, not just gravity takes them. It's a numbers game, a Pachenko machine where just enough marbles fall out of the bottom. So that whole credibility, whether people believe it, whether people read the words of the book, whether they like the title, whether the next step is a minimum viable commitment thing that they're happy to take, or it's the next step, you need to write me a check. Like all of these little steps, it's that ascent. And the book is just one part of that process. And it's not a big traditional book that's heavy and expensive and complicated and a big job. It's the one step in this overall process that just helps people believe that they're making the right choice with the right person and they're climbing themselves up this high trust descent.
You explained that perfectly. I've never explained that the inversion of a funnel, but if you really think about it, like they do come at the bottom, and you have to gain and earn their trust. The know, like, and trust factor. I mean, obviously you explain it better than I, but damn, it just makes me think about it. Great
Yeah,
analogy.
yeah,
A great way to frame
yeah.
it. Let's see, Stuart. I wish you had more freaking time, my friend.
I know. So
Where? No, you're good. Where can they find you if they wanted to explore your work further, man?
So the easiest place is to go to mrstuartbell.com. So StuartBell, MrStuartBell.com. And then all of my writings on there and links to the companies and 90-minute books and brutal guides and the two book companies. And yeah, just as you can tell, I love talking about this stuff. So if anyone wants to hit me up, always happy to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us, my friend. I know you and I have something planned here in the near future, which would be pretty exciting. But yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for hopping on, my friend.
perfect. Thanks, John. Appreciate it, buddy.
As an audience, take care.